Success without integrity is fragile. Titles can be taken, money can be lost, but your character is what sustains your leadership. In cybersecurity, trust is everything, and in life, it's the same. People follow leaders who they trust, not leaders with the fanciest titles. So as you step into this season, I want to encourage you to pursue wholeness, not just career growth. If you married right, the idea that you would share your body with someone but can't share your money, the fact that you can trust this person to raise your child, the reality is make sure you choose a partner that you're willing to give your all. We live in a society where everybody wants people who give 100%, but everybody goes into the world so skeptical, so they give 50%. The reality is certain highs and emotions that we feel make you feel like that's something you'd want to sustain long term, but then you'd realize that if you actually got that for long term, you'd actually not want it at all. Welcome back to the Grace and Glow podcast, and welcome to season 2. If we haven't met yet, and this is your first time to tune into the podcast, well, then I'm your host, Ivy Cashero, and I can't tell you how excited I am that you're here. So whether you've been a part of this journey since season 1 or this is your first episode, this space is all about faith, leadership, and lifestyle. Basically, conversations that help us grow and glow in and live life more purposefully. We ended season 1 with gratitude, and it was basically gratitude to you, every single listener, for the guests who share their stories and for the faithfulness of God in guiding me and us through that season. And I remember closing it with a prayer and asking that God gives us the courage to step, more boldly into what's next. Today, I want to build on that prayer, and I want to invite you into what I'm calling the Glow Up Reset. Our anchor scripture for this episode comes from Isaiah 43:19 that says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" That verse reminds me that even when things feel stuck or slow or however it may look like in your scenario right now, God is always moving. He's always doing something new, even when we can't see it yet. And that's what season 2 is about. Perceiving the new and stepping into it with focus, alignment, on wholeness. So as I look back into season 1, I see it as a season of obedience. To be honest, I didn't even have it all figured out when I started. I just knew God was nudging me to create a space where faith and real life conversations could meet. And through the step of obedience, we had powerful testimonies about resilience, identity, and faith through challenges. I shared in the last episode how grateful I was for this community, especially navigating the season I was in. It was a lot. So for you who listened in Nairobi, in Lagos, in Joburg, in Dubai, and beyond, some of you wrote to me saying, this episode helped them keep going, or it felt like God was speaking directly to them, or they could identify some of themselves in some of the stories. That feedback has been such a confirmation that this is bigger than me. It's about what God wants to do in all of us. So season 1 was a reminder that when we show up with honesty and vulnerability, God shows up too. And as we close that chapter, I knew season 2 needed to build on that foundation, but go deeper into kingdom, marketplace, and leadership. And that's why today we are starting with a reset. Why season 2 matters. To me, this season and why now is because sometimes before God brings the new, He calls us to a reset. Not everything from the last season of our lives can be carried into the next one. Some things need to be released, some habits need to be broken, and some visions need to be sharpened. And that's what this new season is about. in season 1, we focused a lot on identity and faith in personal journeys. And in this season 2, I'm trying to widen that lens to just figure out how do we carry that faith into leadership, into our careers, and into the marketplace. And in that way, how do we end up presenting ourselves in the way we do our day-to-day living? So for me, the transition from season 1 to season 2 has been asking myself the tough questions. Am I aligned with what God is calling me to do? Am I leading with integrity in my career? And am I balancing my profession with wholeness in my personal life? And they're not easy questions, but they're necessary. And I believe they are questions you, as my listeners, or you yourself are asking. And I want us to look at this season 3, focusing on the glow up reset on 3 principles. And I want us, because as we're navigating this season 2, for me, is focused on the last quarter and, the last 4 months of the year. I want us to focus on preparing ourselves for what comes, what's coming in 2026, and how to finish strong in 2025. I came up with 3 principles that I think we could look at in shaping what that might look like. And the first principle is what I'd call, in this season, I'm calling these 3 principles the 3 R's, which is one of them being refocus, which is basically identifying what that looks like from a vision standpoint. And this first principle of reset is grounded from the book of Proverbs 29:18, which tells us that where there is no vision, the people perish. Something that's been significant for me, especially in this season, and particularly since when I started the beginning of the year, I was in a season where I was questioning myself in terms of what does God want me to do. I was quite uncertain about what lies ahead. The only thing that I had that was sure was that God wanted me to be in this place. God was opening doors that required me to be in this place. And the podcast was the only sure thing that I knew as an instruction from God, that I needed to fulfill. And here I am. I moved in obedience in a season where, it made no sense. But before I started all this, beginning of the year, I was able to write down every single thing and stipulate what I think was the bigger picture for me in this season. And this is what I want to call you into as we get towards the end of the year and as we are restructuring and preparing for 2026. I want us to think about this. Where there is no vision, the people perish. The question then becomes, what is your vision right now? Not just your 5-year plan, but your God-given purpose in this season. Because one thing I've learned is that if we don't intentionally refocus, distractions will dictate our direction. If you've been into the UAE, everybody who moves here, I'm always telling them that when you come into this country, if you don't come with a clear vision of how you want your life in this country to look like, this country will tell you how your life should turn out. And it's a good and a bad thing, because most people don't anticipate the kind of opportunities, the lifestyle, the direction, the plethora of cultures. There's a lot that you could easily be soaked into while you're here. And so the same thing applies to, in our lives, wherever part of the world you are. You don't want to be a person whose life is driven by the circumstances around them. So this is where we set the vision for what that may look like. So when I think about my own journey, career transitions, relocation challenges, which I think I've discussed in season 1 and other episodes, and also in seasons of waiting, there are times I had to pause and ask, is this what I'm chasing? Is it still aligned with God's vision for me? Or have I drifted into just doing what looks good on paper? So refocusing is about coming back to your why. So I want to challenge you. Take a moment this week and write down one area of your life where you need a clear vision. Is it your career? Is it your relationship? Is it your spiritual growth? Identify what area of your life requires for you to realign. and then write that down and begin to ponder on what that may look like. The second value is realign. And this second principle, rather, is driven from the book of Habakkuk 2, verse 2, which which tells us that we should write the vision and make it plain. But vision without value is just ambition. A realignment is about checking, are my daily habits, my friendships, my decisions, are they in line with the values I claim to hold? One of the values that I've constantly reevaluated is the idea that I value my body as as a temple. And if you just look like at individuals who claim to hold this value, the best way to see whether people actually hold these values true is, watching the kind of things they do, the kind of foods they eat, whether they take their fitness and looking after their bodies seriously. And I begin to ask myself, if I cannot honor the values I claim to have myself, are those values truly true to me? Or are these ideologies that I presume I should be holding? Now, the main reason why this matters is I shared this in a previous episode on our podcast I was introducing. And I think one of the clips is available on Instagram. But I have learned that the best way to achieving your dreams and your ambitions is becoming the person that your dream and ambition is fulfilled by. And what I mean by this is, if you want to be, a billionaire, begin to move the way billionaires move. And sometimes it's, I'm using the example of money because, it's a mindset, so it's easier to identify. But similarly, if you want to get your body in check, begin to check what you eat. Eat healthy, begin to work out, begin to get your steps in, begin to change your lifestyle in a way to align with the kind of things you want. And you'd realize, even when it comes to community, you begin to attract a community that aligns themselves with the principles and the values that you live by. Over the past years that I've been here in this country, I've actually realized that the more I align myself with my own goals and my own ambitions, those whose values and ambitions don't align with mine seem to just, dwindle away. Like, it's not a matter of like, oh, cut off the people who aren't going where you're going. It's just once you begin to realign yourself, you realize that those who are not in alignment fall away. And then you begin to build a tribe that can push you and propel you into the direction you want. So truly, the question is, are the things, your habits, your friendships, and the decisions you're making in alignment with the values you claim to hold? And I've seen this especially in the workplace, when I look at my space in the cybersecurity space and tech space where I spent much of my career. People always, tend to make shortcuts. People will cut corners for quick wins, but integrity has taught me that short-term gains often cost long-term influence. So realignment means saying no to things that look profitable, but they compromise your values. It's also meaning adjusting when you realize you've drifted. And let me be honest, I have had seasons where I had to sit down and say, Lord, I need a reset because I'm not walking in alignment with what I know I want to be. So what do you need to realign in this season? It might be your boundaries at work, your financial habits, or even the voices you allow to influence you. Think about those. Note them down as well as we get into this season. The third principle is recharge. And here I want to talk about faith and lifestyle. Because for me, this is one that is often overlooked, but is so necessary, especially in leadership, in family, in career. We can pour so much out that we forget to fill back up. But even Jesus withdrew to pray. Even leaders in the Bible had rhythms of rest. So for me, recharging has looked like setting time apart for prayer and scripture, but also taking care of my physical and emotional health. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is sleep. I said, for me, the my default to dealing with a lot of my issues is actually sleeping. But I want to, add that, like, you need to, the aspects that you need to look into your, sometimes it's not overly superficial. Simple things from a spiritual standpoint can include, sleep, eating well, or just taking a walk. Recently, I've added activities into my space, playing paddle and even, exploring wellness spaces here in Dubai as ways for me to recharge. And especially in the season where I was transitioning, from, not constantly working to not having a regular day job, to focusing on the projects that I was doing at the same time as I tried to build a plan for what my next, opportunity should look like and what my ambitions are, both financially. I got to realize that one of the things that gave me the energy and the enthusiasm during this phase was the fact that I was able to cater to my spirit, mind, and body as a whole, and being able to remain consistent in, working out. And I think for me, the privilege of having a personal trainer has been really beneficial for me because I'm able to be very strategic about the goals and what I'm really trying to achieve part time. And I'm hoping that as part of this platform, we would also continue having those conversations. But because the realization is when your spirit and mind and body are whole, you lead better, you love better, and you live better. So I want you to think about this. What does recharging look like for you? Maybe it's time you just schedule a retreat, a digital detox, or a consistent prayer routine. It's as simple as that. And I know maybe sometimes, we get so bogged down with the things that we're doing that we don't get to sit down and just reflect. But if you could set out some time this week and also just note this, it'll help you prep on how to finish strong this year and strategize for the next year. Now, I know I talked about, the whole reset idea. Now, I want us to tie this reset into the marketplace. Marketplace and leadership being key components that I want to focus on within the season. Many of you listening are young professionals in the UAE, in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. You're chasing careers, managing businesses or trying to balance multiple hustles. And I get it. I've lived it. But here's the truth. Success without integrity is fragile. Titles can be taken, money can be lost, but your character is what sustains your leadership. In cybersecurity, trust is everything. And in life, it's the same. People follow leaders who they trust, not leaders with the fanciest titles. So as you step into this season, I want to encourage you to pursue wholeness, not just career growth. Ask yourself, am I building trust? Am I leading with values? Am I creating a life that my future family will be proud of? Now, before we close, I want to invite you to one, subscribe to the Grace and Glow Up podcast. You ask why? Because this isn't just a show, it's a community. Every week in this season, we'll have conversations with leaders, coaches, survivors, dreamers, and professionals who will share stories and strategies that will inspire you to live purposefully. Subscribing means you won't miss the conversation, and it helps us grow this movement so that more people across Dubai, Nigeria, Lagos, Johannesburg can step into their glow. So if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, hit subscribe now. The main reason why I also share this is because for me, I'm trying to build a community where we could have engagements that allow us to, not just connect virtually, but also connect as a community. In the next few months, you'll realize there'll be a lot of initiatives that we would run as part of the community, activities that tie into the vision of the Grace and Glow Up community. So Grace and Glow Up community's podcast is not just a podcast, it's a community. We're trying to build a movement of people who can build kingdom, marketplace, influence while leading. So my assignment to you is this. As part of the Glow Up reset for this week, take 30 minutes to write down what you need to refocus, realign, and then recharge before the year ends. pray over it. And if you're comfortable, share your reflections with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I would love to hear how you're stepping into your glow up reset. Now, for season 2, it's going to be powerful. We'll be joined by leaders and friends who will share their journeys from surviving challenges to thriving in careers, to building kingdom marriages, to navigating money and mentorships. So this is not just another podcast season, as I've said. It's a reset for all of us. So I want to close with this blessing that may you finish this year stronger than you started. May you walk with clarity of vision, alignment of values, and renewed strength in your spirit, mind, and body. May you step boldly into new things that God is doing in your life. That this is your glow up reset. And I'm honored to walk this journey with you. Once again, I'm your host, Ivy Cachero, and see you next week. Hey guys, I just want to add on this here before you continue watching the rest of the episode and preparing for what I'm, about to share about season 2. See, I really appreciated all you guys were sharing as part of the feedback from season 1, the DMs, the comments, the likes, the shares. It's been amazing. But the whole production and the effort and the resources that go in the back end to make this happen cost money. So I want you to help me like, share, and subscribe. Don't send me direct messages just on my DM without fully engaging with the content on YouTube. So if you're actually watching the full videos on YouTube, it'll help if you actually get to share, like, and subscribe. I mean, if you can help me in this first few weeks, just get to 1,000 subscribers, you'd have taken me a long way. Through season 1, we made it to, I think, about 300. I'll just share a screenshot here of what progress we've made so far. But try get me to 1,000 subscribers. The more the subscribers, the more I could be able to monetize this platform. Nonetheless, I have something that I've been thinking that I'll be doing in this season. The more engagement that I get from you here will be able to let me know how much content I could continue to release. I'm looking to do more extensive, exclusive content. But for those who actually value what we're actually doing here from a 1 hour, 45-minute content. So please, if you're watching this now, like, share, subscribe. Sorry, I'm taking your time. I'm going to pause for a few seconds just to make sure that if you're watching this on your TV or on your phone, take a pause and like, and then subscribe. In fact, even if you don't like, just unlike, thumbs up, thumbs down, that's enough engagement as well. But also leave a comment. I'd really appreciate that. Awesome. You're such lovely viewers. Thanks for subscribing. So now let's get back to the episode. Funny thing, unpopular opinion that I just thought about right now is that there's such a concept as lazy, hardworking individuals. And I consider myself as a lazy, hardworking person. And I know, wait, before you come for me and say there's no such thing, hear me out, right? I mean, as a lady, we've got highs and lows when it comes to our hormonal cycle. So the way I view how I perform, I've got high peak weeks, where I get my best work done. If you meet me in those weeks, you'll be like, oh my God, she's such a boss babe. She gets all her stuff done. And then the rest of the 2 weeks, if you meet me, probably in pajamas and would like to wake up and take a shower at the end of the day as opposed to the beginning of the day. But the reality is that's my identification of what balance is. So tell me, what's your unpopular opinion? Unpopular opinion, you could agree or disagree, but we're not all ambitious at the same level. And hear me out. When we were in school, think about it when you were in uni. When we were in uni and everybody was studying, we were all talking about how we're really working hard to get these big jobs once we finish school. And then we finished school, and I don't know, just life ended up happening to people. The job market is the same. Some people come from privilege and end up in jobs. But I've just come to realize that the way we go into the world depends on how we were brought up. So the way we chase and the way we pursue success and is very different. And so why I say this is, when you look at the dynamic of coming to look for jobs in Dubai, right? I've come to realize there are different sorts of people. There are people who come here and they're like, I'm taking this short, I'm going to make 3 months. If this works, I'm going back home. And then there are those who come into this country believing that this has got to work. And those people hustle different. Those people are the people who drop off their CVs at every office. They're the people who apply for jobs like a full-time job. I can't lie to you, because I did that for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. I can tell you it is a full-time job. And the thing is, if you do it right, it could be rewarding. So for some, you chase and you go after it because it must work. And for some, if it doesn't work, we've got a fallback plan. So point is, don't ever compare your journey. When you chase, run at the speed you feel you need to run. We're not all at the same urgency. Unpopular opinion: your partner should add peace, not confusion. Unpopular opinion: the world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more people with integrity. Unpopular opinion: well, maybe this is popular. Not all people in the church are good people. It's like a hospital. Hospitals are full of sick people. So do what you will with that information. There are doctors and there are patients in hospitals. Unpopular opinion: a married man cannot be the love of your life if he is not your husband. Unpopular opinion: prayer isn't about getting or what you want. It's about alignment. And that's harder. I think I'm out of unpopular opinions. I've come to believe that, in a society where love feels like, like love is a feeling, people tend to confuse great experiences as decisions for long-term commitment, like something you'd want to set in stone for life, as this is my person. But it's like saying going to a great party and having such a good time, and then saying, oh my God, I just want to be at this party all day long. The reality is, the highs and the emotions, certain highs and emotions that we feel may make you feel like that's something you'd want to sustain long term. But then you'd realize that what if you actually got that for long term, you'd actually not want it at all. It just feels great because it's now. But the reality of what long-term commitments entail is that in the long term, there's monotony, there's boredom, it's no longer a consistent high. So when you're choosing, your decision on being with someone isn't always focused on the highs. It's focused on what does this person bring, even when there's no excitement, or when there's, it doesn't feel as exciting. No, the butterflies aren't there. There's responsibility. What does that look like? And so the reason why I say, like, a married man can't be the love of your life is, in most cases, a married man is usually an escape, because he's escaping something and you are getting a version of him that is based off like his vacation life. His wife experiences the everything. When you experience the vacation life, vacations are great. And so if you got this man and experienced the other side that his wife is experiencing, you'd realize, that this is not the love of your life. And also, I just think the love of your life couldn't be married. Now, I'm not saying the love of your life could not be will not in future be divorced, but I'm saying you can't peg your life on wishing for the downfall of somebody else as unethical for me. And I'm not saying this out of higher moral ground, but it's out of, I've seen it, and like my view has changed from the younger version of myself. So a bit more wisdom now, I would say. Yeah. I've just actually thought about something. I listened to a video today. In fact, on second thought, let me probably play the video. The one that I was away. Yeah. I saw a video on Instagram from Dave Ramsey around money. It reminded me of a conversation I was having with my trainer. And I've had this conversation with many other people, but like the discussion was, a man gave a call to Dave Ramsey, and he was asking, what my wife doesn't know that we are millionaires, because his wife is a stay-home mom and she's a spender. I'll probably play the video and then you'd get the gist of it. But then he goes on to ask about the cultural nuances and all of that. For me, I've always said that if as a couple, you can't be, and this is my unpopular opinion, that if as a couple you can't be transparent about money and you have to hide, either one, because the man feels like the woman will misuse the money, or maybe because the man maybe feels like his wife is a gold digger, or, in future, maybe the wife can, there are all sorts of stories like, my wife who could eventually, choose to leave me, and if she knew how much money I'd have, and, all that kind of stuff. And I've always asked myself, is the issue the money, or is it that you married wrong, or you have trust issues? Because if you married right, the idea that you would share your body with someone but can't share your money is, baffles me. And the fact that you can trust this person to raise your child but still want to hold an aspect of finances, unpopular opinion. I'm just saying that the reality is, I think the bottom line is, make sure you choose a partner that you're willing to give your all. We live in a society where everybody wants people who give 100%, but everybody goes into the world so skeptical, so they give 50%. And the unfortunate reality is, people are meeting people who are giving 50% because they give 50% but desire 100%. If you gave 100 and showed up giving 100, I think we would have more substantial relationships. But hey, you show up with 70%, you're highly likely meeting someone showing up with 20 or even 30. But the truth is, you deeply desire to be seen and to be heard and to be understood, so that you don't have to hide your money, you don't have to hide your secrets, you don't have to hide your scars. But the caveat to that is, you need to be transparent and true. And the risk of that is you risk being scarred. But at the same time, you also could potentially get the love of your life and, have something more meaningful. But if you're gonna play safe, gotta love